Good day, Black Knight scholars. Mr. Deegan here for the 9-2 VidNotes. First, write down the learning target on your page. I will understand the causes of World War II. The Second World War involves the Nazis and the friends of the Nazis. It involves the League of Nations and the Treaty of Versailles and the stinky Treaty of Versailles because it blames Germany, giving rise to the Nazis. But both the League of the Nations and this treaty fail. It's the fail stamp. Time to talk. A background on this war. The major theaters of war included Africa, Europe, Asia, and the Pacific Islands. Effective leadership was essential to the Allied victory. And here you see the theaters of war. We're going to talk about this now. What is a theater of war? It's not where you put on a play. A theater is also a military term for an area where an armed conflict takes place. There are two theaters during World War II. The European theater, which took place in Europe and Africa and in the Atlantic Ocean, and the Pacific theater, which takes place in Asia and the Pacific Islands. What caused World War II? I'm going to talk about 6 different causes. Number 1, aggression by the totalitarian powers of Italy with Mussolini, Germany with Hitler, and Japan with Hideki Tojo and the Emperor Hirohito. Number 2, nationalism using militaristic governments. These 3 men used nationalism and a strong military in all of the wrong ways. They used their military might to seize foreign lands and create a sense of pride and common purpose among citizens. They used war to create nationalism, just like Napoleon did. Is that the right way to kill people in order to feel prideful? Number 3, the failures of the Treaty of Versailles that we have talked about. Also, the weakness of the League of Nations. Here's Woodrow Wilson. He created the League of Nations. But in this cartoon, everyone is throwing tomatoes at him. Now, let's talk more in depth about the League of Nations. In fact, let's kick it over to Mr. Deegan. Mr. Deegan? The Treaty of Versailles also created the League of Nations, which was U.S. President Woodrow Wilson's idea. And here he is, and here is his 1919 idea, this peace organization. So Woodrow Wilson had 14 points, 14 items that would actually win him the Nobel Peace Prize in 1919. He said, no secret treaties, freedom of the seas for all, equality of trade, reduction in militaries. Let's prevent another world war, people. And the most important of the 14th points, the League of Nations. What was the League of Nations? Here's its logo. It was an international cooperative organization, and it was established to prevent future wars. Here is the map of the League of Nations countries. You see in dark green are the permanent members that were with the League of Nations from the beginning. The lighter green are some of the late members. And in white, look at who is absent from the League of Nations. It's the United States. The League of Nations failed. Why? It did not have the power to enforce decisions. It didn't have a military. It had weak diplomatic power. And the U.S. Senate voted against joining, opposing its own president's idea. Yes, the U.S. Senate voted down the Treaty of Versailles and the League of Nations on March 19th, 1920. Why? It sounds reasonable. Well, a majority of U.S. politicians thought that the U.S. was giving up the power to control its own foreign policy. This is William Borah. He is a senator from Idaho. He opposed President Wilson's plans, and this is what he said. If we agree to this, we will have forfeited and surrendered once and for all the great policy of no entangling alliances upon which the strength of this republic has been founded for 150 years. Who said this phrase? Mr. George Washington did. He did not want the U.S. to get involved in any unnecessary alliances. Bora shares that sentiment, and he thinks Wilson is ignoring George Washington. The League of Nations does create the mandate system in the Middle East. What is mandate? It's an official authority to act. So under the mandate system here, France and Britain gain control of land in the Middle East, at least temporarily. How was the Middle East divided under the League of Nations mandate systems? Well, Britain gets Iraq, Transjordan, which later becomes just Jordan, and Palestine. Here you see Palestine going to Britain, Transjordan going to Britain, and Iraq going to Britain. And France gets Syria, and to the west, Lebanon. What's the impact of this mandate system? Well, the division of the Ottoman Empire through the mandate system planted the seeds for future conflicts in the Middle East. Now, let's return to the causes of World War II and talk about this man. Number 5, appeasement caused World War II. Appeasement is the policy of using negotiation and compromise to avoid an armed conflict, which sounds good, but it's hard to appease Adolf Hitler. But that's what the European powers tried to do. It's Munich, a city in Germany, 1938. Britain, France, and Italy agree to give Hitler and the Nazis Czechoslovakia's Sudetenland in order to keep peace. Where is the Sudetenland? Here's Germany, here's Austria, and this yellow portion of Czechoslovakia is Sudetenland. 3 million ethnic Germans live here. It's filled with coal and oil, and Germany wants it. They get it, but after Hitler gets what he wants, he then ignores the agreement between him and these European powers. He wants more, and he gets it. What else caused World War II? The tendencies toward isolationism and pacifism in both Europe and the US. What is pacifism? It's the belief that violence is always wrong and that all disputes should be settled by peaceful means. Maybe to stop a dictator like Hitler, you need to be violent to show him you mean business. We are almost done. There is a summary question for you to do that's worth 3 points. And when you're done with that, you are done with this lesson. Until next time, this is Mr. Deegan signing off.